Hello and you're very welcome to the JMAC Podcast. I'm John Man. Of course, the podcast brought to you by Urgretch.com. Use the code JMAC Podcast to get 15% off on the website. Loads of gear dropping just in time for the championship, so get your hands on it and use the discount code to get 15% off. And today I am joined by Gaelic life journalist Michael Woolen to talk about championship action last weekend. Of course, there's only 2 games in the championship, and that's all we had. But Mon and Tyrone served up an absolute feast of football yesterday, and it's probably the game of the championship thus far. So many talk points. Can't wait to divulge in it. Of course, we'll touch on this weekend's action as well. So we're really looking forward to chatting to Mal today. Mal, how are you keeping?
Brilliant. And as you say, throwing them on was just exceptional. Like, we were here last week raving about New York and the drama and the helter-skelter. And yesterday was more, the same and more. And I think it's an advertisement for keeping the Ulster Championship, and no matter what happens, it has to stay. Yesterday was just brilliant, and both teams played a huge part. And but for Ryan O'Toole's moment of complete bravery, Tyrone could have won, could have been extra time, who knows? But brilliant stuff. Yeah. Let's have loads more.
Yeah, fingers crossed, Mal. It was an absolutely breathtaking game of football, and one we will cherish. And of course, a bit of housekeeping before we get the ball rolling with the podcast tonight. The GAA.ie football team of the week for this week is Mr. Rory Began in between the nets. Mr. Ryan O'Toole, who obviously got the great goal yesterday, is the first quarterback. Fullback line. Fullback is Shea Cullen of Fermanagh. Poor Campsie Tyrone. Half back line of Conor McCluskey, Conor Myler, and Carl O'Connell. And then a midfield of Paul Cassidy and Brian Kennedy. And then a half forward line of Conor McCarthy, Ultim Kelb, and Ethan Doherty. And then a full forward line of Shane McGuigan, Tyrone's Derek Canavan, and Monaghan's timeless Mr. Conor McManus. And then the footballer of the week nominees are Shane McGuigan, Rory Began, and Derek Canavan. I suppose, any thoughts on the team of the week, Mal?
Yeah, well, they all had a good weekend, and I think these things are very much to do with opinions a lot of the time. And a difficult one, obviously, because there's only 2 games, so it was always going to be flooded by Ulster lads. But I thought Derek Canavan was amazing yesterday. We did a wee thing in the Gaelic Life a couple of weeks back, players to watch, and Conor Turbot was one, and Derek Canavan was another one. He's just exceptional to watch. His balance, his handling, even his quick hands for McCurry's point at the end. He changed direction for a point onto his left, the way he took his goal. A brilliant player, and probably could have got man of the match in the game. Him and Began, I thought, had a huge saying on it. And as Conor Mortimer said on our WhatsApp earlier on, Shane Hughes' influence made a big difference when he came on. So, but Derek Canavan was exceptional. Probably, maybe player of the week for me.
Or even man of the match. Obviously, Conor wants to get the spoils. And suppose, as you said, Derek Canavan probably would be player of the week. He obviously did have such an exceptional game yesterday. Just a chip of the old block, Mr. McMullen.
Very much so, and I don't really like comparing people to their fathers, because I think it's unfair, but he just seems to be similar in the way he can jink and turn inside, and I think Tyrone people have to be excited with what he's going to bring in the years to come. And I think for the game, even though Tyrone are our rivals here, but even for the game, you just want somebody like that to stay injury free, and for people to flock every week to watch people like that, because at the end of the day, that's what's magical about Championship Sunday, and he's an exceptional player.
Yeah, he is a fine footballer. Yeah, that is the team of the week and footballer of the week nominee. So it'll be interesting to see who gets player of the week. Mr. Canavan, I think, will be definitely thereabouts. Shane McGuigan had quite the game on Saturday night, Mr. McGuigan also.
A great player, Shane McGuigan, and as he would have admit himself, he was more probably too reliant on his left, and he spent nearly every day in lockdown kicking 100 balls against the Gable wall with his right foot, just muscle memory and all that type of thing. But I think the interesting thing about Rory Gallagher, in an interview one day, I says, I noticed Shane has improved his right foot, and he very quickly corrected me. He says, no, Shane's improved his right side. He says it's not even about his foot, it's the fact that he can turn 2 ways. The cornerback won't look at what foot you kick with. It's where you're going to turn. And Rory Gallagher very quickly pointed that out, that's what he wanted to bring. So you can imagine a cornerback getting a wee bit of footage before a game about what he's going to do. So he's not as predictable. And I think with Gareth McKinless playing that wee bit further forward, I think it's the first time McGuigan has been playing as close to goal.
Yeah.
And he had some battle with Shea Cullen, who obviously bagged 2 goals later on, although he wasn't marking Shane at that point. But no, Shane's an exceptional player. And I don't know if he's had this conversation in his own head at this point, but he's probably disappointed last year he didn't get an All-Star. And I know a lot of players talk about they don't look for personal traits, but maybe in the back of his mind he's got a wee note made in a target diary somewhere about I'm going to be the best forward in Ireland. And I suppose that's what all good players want to be. And it's refreshing to see players like that. And he's an exceptional player. And he's 5 goals this season, 3 from the penalty spot. So hopefully he just stays injury free and keeps pinging points. Yeah,
he is just a top class player. I think it's a 2-5 he got there on Saturday. So that's unbelievable scoring in an Ulster Championship game against a very mean Fermanagh defence, to say the least. I suppose just on the Gaelic Live this week, it'll be full of interviews, full of chats, so people may get their hands on it because it's coming into the Ticket Trust of Ulster Championship, man.
Yeah, it is. And I suppose the thing about working in the GAA journalism, people automatically, they always say to me, it must be coming into your busy season now, but it never stops. Kenna Cup, League, Championship, Club Championship, McCrory Cup. I think, what would you have, two weeks in the year and off and on? But sure, there's nothing else to talk about, would there? We'd have to start talking about the weather and the garden and soccer and stuff like that. I mean, when you support Everton, you don't want to talk about soccer.
Oh God, well, that's Port United, Mal. So both of us are probably up and down virtues at the minute, but absolutely get your hands on the Gaelic Life because we are coming into the Ticket Trust of the Championship, and obviously Mal and the lads are doing great work. So yeah, we're getting into the hot and heavy nature of the Championship. So Mal, one place to start. It is the only place to start. Yes, there's action in the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarter-final. It was Tyrone 118, Monaghan 217 in O'Neill's Healy Park. Mal, I think I needed a ventilator after this game.
There's only one place to start. #Ryan O'Toole. Oh my God.
Yeah.
He was going through, and actually before Monaghan got their first goal, I tweeted, this is some game. And hey, it was only starting. You know, the goals and action, but Ryan O'Toole's finish, like, it's unbelievable what he did. And I was listening to the GA social this evening there, and one of the guys asked him, did you know what the score was? And he did. He knew there was only a point in it. And he still went for it. Amazing stuff. Will that leave managers up and down the country tearing the hair out that everybody's going to take that shot on from now on? So, yeah. But I think the Monaghan team helped him a lot. Began went. Carl O'Connell kept his run going. You know, it kept the rest of the Tyrone defenders trying to look at everybody, and he probably ghosted in, but what a finish. And only Niall Morgan will know this, but I would say he wasn't expecting the shot.
Yeah.
Because was it Cormac Monroe was the defender back in the line that seemed to catch both of them, but he obviously opted for a pair. But some bravery. You know, he could have missed. And you're out of the championship, and we'll be having a completely different conversation. But fair play to him.
Yeah. I suppose, man, obviously we were having this conversation earlier on, and like I'd say most of the country watching from the TV or watching in O'Neill's Healy Park yesterday probably thought that Mr. O'Toole was going to go for the point and just fist it over, and we'll go to a draw, we'll go to extra time here. He nutmegs Niall Morgan in the process. Niall Morgan is an extremely talented goalkeeper. He is like bag full of experience. So it just goes to show such bravery, and that bit of luck it definitely paid off.
I remember thinking Rory Began hit an unbelievable kick out. The behind the goal footage, it showed that I think it was Killian Lavelle made his run. And Began found him, but Lavelle kicked the ball away, and you're thinking to yourself, we're not going to get extra time. You're just wanting for more at that point. And then as O'Toole's going in, you're thinking, right, we're going to get extra time. And I remember thinking, Jesus, he went for a goal there. There's still more action. There's actually still more action after that. brilliant stuff. And
Yeah.
I think what says probably more about the game, John, was the fact that the battle between Stephen O'Hanlon and Conor Meyler. Like, Conor Meyler dominated the first half, which Tyrone did, and it was flipped in the second half. O'Hanlon took him on. That maybe summed up the game more than anything. And they just took it to them. Like, they probably stood off them, but you have to give Tyrone an awful lot of credit. They were exceptionally good in the first half. And I thought that, they could always, Monaghan could always get it back to 3. And then you look up at the scoreboard and there'd be 4 in it and there'd be 5 in it. And you're thinking to yourself, this is going to be one of these games where Monaghan are going to battle like mad. And it's going to come back to that kick out and Dara Canavan's goal. Had that feel about it. And, people talking about half time and the Mickey Hart thinking it was over and Oisin and Michael Murphy thinking that it wasn't. And I remember thinking, well, that goal's going to be hard to shake back. Yeah. That's what makes Beggin's second half performance all the more notable. Yeah. He just parked it and he went with it, and he had Kieran Hughes in fine form.
Yeah.
No, it was a game of two halves, and it was a game that Tyrone brought so much to, and I'd say they'll be kicking themselves today. But whatever time they decide to gather up and give themselves another shake, they'll realise that apart from winning an Ulster title, which they obviously can't do now, they'll be in the shake-up. And I go back to that night we were on this pod when Mayo hammered them, and I was thinking to myself, where are Tyrone? Where are they? Now they've scored 114 from play, I think, yesterday. I think it's something like that. Yeah. And they're still in the All-Ireland race.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, like it's funny, like the game itself nearly fried your head. There was so much action, and I suppose I don't know if you had anyone in the room besides you trying to, as maybe I was saying off air, if they were trying to have a conversation with you, if we person running around the place, like you needed absolute tunnel vision. There was so much happening, even in the first half, man, and even like suppose if we deep dive into the game, like it started so well. There's no defenses, and it was just tit for tat. And it's a game we've been crying out for so long in the championship, even football in general, Mal.
Big time, and I did say to you earlier about the New York Leitrim thing, and it was sort of helter-skelter, and this was the same, and probably when Monaghan and Tyrone sit down to dissect it, they'll find 1,000 mistakes. But I think, as you say, we are crying out for this. Ask anybody who goes to a game, they want entertainment. Every so often you're going to get an Ulster final like Derry and Donegal last year that probably nobody outside of Derry and Donegal would have particularly enjoyed because it was so tight. That's a different type of excitement, stroke intrigue, whatever you want to look at it. But this here was magical stuff here. And you touched on the start they got. Darren McCurry, Dara Canavan, Matty Donnelly was on fire at that point, and Monaghan were sort of at sea, and it probably came back down to Morgan. Like, Morgan had a couple of kickouts in the first half, one to the left wing, literally out in the whitewash, the same on the other side, and found the man. And then, as I say, it goes back to the three amigos inside, that you think to yourself, these boys are going to take some watching. I remember thinking this, from a Derry point of view, thinking, these boys are going to take some watching. But Monaghan got to grips with the game, and with Vinnie Corey chatted in his interview about they needed to go for it, and and it's probably a bit like Derry and Dublin in the league game up at Celtic Park where Rory Gallagher called it passive. This was probably something similar. Monaghan were nearly standing off them.
Yeah.
But Tyrone's a good side, that's going to happen. But the fact it was a game of two halves, and the fact that, as you say, there were so many moments in it. And I remember looking at the clock and there's 20 minutes to go, and you're thinking, oh my God, there's still more to go here. This is brilliant.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah. No, it's just top class stuff. Now, even like the inside forward group we do thrown in the first half, like Dara Canavan and Darren McCurry put on an absolute show. Conor McManus kicked some absolute beauty. So we were just treated as such a good spectacle, a really good point scoring, really good movement, and just. You're nearly kind of thinking, like, where has this football been all my life, nearly in the last 10 odd years?
Definitely, and like there is a lot of negative press about the way football is. People will go to games and it'll be passive partial football and that type of thing. But I I suppose teams like that, sort of managers like it, supporters of successful teams like it because it works for them. But the average Joe Bloggs coming through the turnstile, they want helter skelter. Will Tyrone be dissecting this game today or tomorrow and thinking, if only we had took the sting out of the second half in some way. But how do you? Monaghan are so dominant.
Yeah.
Then throw in Kieran Hughes, what Kieran Hughes did. I just really hope that the championship keeps delivering things like this, and I know we'll touch on later, but even like Cavan and Armagh, how do you pick a winner there? Yeah. The Donegal down thing where there's, both teams have so much to play for, so you'd like to think that this keeps going. But in the grand scheme of things, you're not going to get in Leinster and Munster. But like we got the Mayo and Roscommon game last weekend where, yes, it was a wet day and it was cagey, but it was good, intense stuff like to watch. You're thinking to yourself, who's going to win this? Yeah. And you have to admire the way Roscommon defended and all that type of thing. So it depends what you look for in a game. I just look for a game where there's plenty of talking points and with 5 minutes to go, you don't know who's going to win.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fairness, we were treated to so many talented footballers on show. What did you maybe make of Derek Canavan's first half display? Like the goal, his point taking ability, like for such a young lad, like he just oozes. I know obviously it is a chip and old block, but like he just oozes so much cool, calm, collected, measured approach to football.
Balance is the word that jumps out for me. Now, he's obviously a very good finisher. He scored 120 from play this year, which is. He's not. I think he's got one free or one mark. I can't remember which it was, but all but one of his points have came from play. I remember doing a piece in the Tyrone Herald before the county final last year, where it was Fintan Devlin, the coach from Ballygolly School, where obviously the two Canons went to. But Derek Canavan came in first year, and they had this sort of a class league type thing going on, where he was marking this boy that was far bigger than him, and he scattered Canavan in the first ball. Yeah. And the next ball Canavan went for, he stood back and flicked it over his head and nearly made a fool out of him, out of pure skill. And the teachers were standing back going, Jesus, did that really happen? And I remember watching him playing for Tyrone Miners, against Derry a couple of times and thinking to yourself, this man's a class act. Yeah. And there's actually footage of an under-20 game against Derry where he was making scores for everybody else. It's hard to know where he's better, playing at number 11 or playing as an inside forward. And by the look of it yesterday, it was nearly like him and McCurry were playing off each other. Yeah. And at whatever point McShane comes back into the mix, or well, obviously Rory Canavan's in it. They've got a real cocktail up there, to be fair. Yeah. Another player I like to look of actually in the Ryan Cup was Conor Cush. I'm not sure how far away from the senior team he is, but I just remember him watching him at university level a couple of times and school level and different things. Thought here's another Tyrone inside forward they're going to be hearing about. So maybe that's if you look at every Tyrone team that's been successful, they've always had a handful of really good forwards, and maybe that's where they're trying to get to a game. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's obviously such a good pick as well. And I suppose obviously from the Monaghan end of things, obviously Conor McManus did whip over a couple of outrageous points in the first half and probably a trip down memory lane, 35 years of age, and he still has that quality to just keep knocking the points over. And he just does it with such ease as well, Mal. Yeah, like Began and missed a couple of frees or 45s or whatever, and I remember thinking they should probably just give the rest of the frees to McManus because there's no substitute for experience whenever you've got somebody at that level. And but on the flip side of that, do you remember the one that he went for they got a free and he tried to work it short? Somebody tried to work it short to him and he got blocked. Maybe a point at that stage would have been a good score or whatever, but at that time the game was really in the melting pot. But he's a star player, but for me it comes back to Began. It comes back to Kieran Hughes, and I suppose then obviously that battle with O'Hanlon. Like I remember seeing the name Stephen O'Hanlon and how much he had scored from play, and he really took a hold of yesterday's game, and he took his goal well. That's basically, he took his goal very well. Yeah, no, remarkable stuff. Mr. McCarty, good to see you. How are you?
Not too bad, John. Yourself, Matt.
How's the form?
I'd say a Derry man today is reveling in the Tyrone defeat yesterday.
Really, just reveling how good a game it was, to be honest. Thank God for it. It was end stuff, and I'll have to admit now, with 10 or 15 minutes gone, what was going through my head was, if Tyrone gets through here, how do we stop that trio up front of, the Dazzler and Derek Canavan with, like Matty Donnelly. He was brilliant. Unless he got injured, I thought it was a bad move taking him off. But then I suppose if the legs are gone or you're struggling, then I can understand that. But just like, you remember, he missed that chance when they needed a score, and the next one he didn't. So, but Monaghan got into it again. But at that stage, Tyrone were looking the real deal, to be fair about it. And I don't know, maybe half time came at the right time for Monaghan. Who knows?
No, it's not a very easy game to sum up in many ways, Mal. You're a sports journalist and you know this better than me. But when we look at it, you look at the raw stats. It's 110 to 5 points at half time. There's so much more to talk about in the first half, but then the second half comes along, and I don't know. Where do we start? Where do we finish with this game? In fairness, the first thing I'll have to say is I've been the biggest critic of the GA in recent months on this podcast. What a championship we've had so far. New York winning, Clare winning, obviously yesterday. I never seen yesterday coming. I'm watching this game at halftime and I'm thinking, by God, like, there's only one winner here. And then Monaghan just rise from the ashes. And I get what you're saying, Mal. In the first half, Tyrone were utterly dominant in many, many passages of play, from kickouts, from their goalkeeper, from their framework of their back eight, from what they were doing going forward was just totally and utterly brilliant. And then I don't know what happens. I don't know. Like Anna McGinley called it last night on the Sunday game a bit of a collapse and a bit of a, it's really hard to describe. I think if I want to put this to you in two ways, Mal, and I want you people to go away from this podcast and look at this. Michael McKiernan gets the ball in about the 6th or 7th minute, and he thinks and he thinks and he thinks, and he kicks a really poor shot into Began, and Began catches above the net. And he quickly distributes, I think it is, to Conor McCarthy. And McCarthy gets the ball in about the 45-yard line of his defence. And the best way to put it to you is he looks around and he's a wee bit weary. And he doesn't do anything with that ball. And it's lethargic, and it's lethargic, and it's lethargic, and it's lethargic, and it's lethargic. And eventually they go up. And if you follow the play, if anybody's watching this, go back and watch it. And you follow the play up. And eventually you get a free underneath Tyrone's post. But there's like 25 passages of play. And then you go the other side, the second half. Frank Burns, about the 63rd minute. I think I have it here. 63rd minute. He kicks the ball the exact same into Began's hands. And the transition from back to front from Monaghan is phenomenal. Absolutely. So quick, so sharp, going through the hands, and the ball ends up over the bar. And then they get back in their box and put Tyrone in the back foot. So I suppose them two incidents sum this game up for me in a microcosm. Tyrone were so much in control, had the game so much, in their control. And it's so on Tyrone, like they let this slip. And it's incredible what happened here. Like when we think about this, when you think about that halftime score, I don't know in many years past, and Matt, you're a better statistician than I'll ever be. Matt Hurley will be. But I'd love to see the stat. When Tyrone are that far up at halftime, how many Ulster Championship matches have they lost in that time? When they're so far 5-6 points up at halftime? That's a ridiculous stat. And the thing about that got me about that game yesterday was, did we need this in the GA? By Jesus, we did. The quality, by the way, wasn't great. In my opinion, that's just me. The intensity was unbelievable. The commitment from amateur players was unbelievable. But we had poor shot selection, dare I say it. We had bad refereeing decisions. We had turnovers of the ball that we don't want to see again. We had imbecilic defensive tackling at times that made it easy for the refereeing. But I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It ebbed and flowed. There's so many different narratives from the game. You know, we can talk, myself and Mal and yourself are maybe talking today on WhatsApp. We can talk about how good Dara Canavan was, how poor the Monaghan defence was, how poor Biggin was for the kick out, but then yet became almost man of the match. You know, Morgan, how big an influence of the game that he was having, and then, how big of an influence he was having on the game. And then all of a sudden, you know, what happens at the end of the match for him, the influence of Petey Hart and Matty Donnelly, where they are in the Tyrone scene. But then again, when you look at the veterans in the Monaghan panel, Darren Hughes, Kieran Hughes in particular, which was pointed out by Conor Mortimer today, and in particular Conor McManus, when the big scores needed to be had, the Monaghan veterans stood up. I don't really know if the Tyrone veterans did.
I think when you're talking about veterans there, and you're talking about that transition that you were chatting about there, Kevin, Carl O'Connell had a big part to play in that.
But I wouldn't call him a veteran. Mal, I know what you're saying.
I'm going by age. By age, yes.
He's a tremendous player. Yeah, no, I know you're 100% right. But
most people will say that, so maybe I'm wrongly saying that. But I thought he was brilliant.
We're talking about boys that have played 13, 14 years, like Petey Hart or Matty Donnelly or these guys. No, but you're 100% right. There's two players that stood out for me in terms of the work rate. It was Carl O'Connell, you're 100% right. And the other one was, see Conor McCarthy getting back to front when the transition came in. He went through a power work. He didn't get on a great deal of ball, but see when it came into the last 10 minutes, Conor McCarthy got on a great deal of ball. His ability to break the line was unbelievable. You know, so
and kick 2 points.
Yeah, he was the work rate of Monaghan yesterday. The hunger was brilliant as well. You know, when we all thought at halftime, every man, his dog, and his woman's dog thought that Monaghan were going at halftime, and look what they done. Look what they done yesterday. That was phenomenal. And you see, you know, the other thing I loved about it, a couple of times it scoped up in Vinnie Corey. He was very, very calm until the end. You know, and you know, I'm a big Celtic supporter, and Hans Postecoglou always says, when you have a calm manager, you know, you entrust things in players. And I just thought Monaghan yesterday, their first half, it was a game of two halves. It's usual, but they were really poor, didn't come out of the traps, were very passive, let Tyrone through easily. Very, very difficult for Monaghan to get scores yesterday in the first half. Second half, totally different team. Total different hunger. The way they transitioned back to front was brilliant. Their work rate, Carl O'Connell, and especially for me, Conor McCarthy, O'Hanlon as well, absolutely brilliant.
I sort of saw the half-time thing where, as it says before you come on air there, Kev, was that Monaghan would take it back to 3 points, and then all of a sudden it was 4 and it was 5. And I remember thinking, this is going to be one of these days where you're going to say that early goal, Monaghan were never able to peg it back. And I think that says a lot about them. That I know they did need the goal, the first goal from O'Hanlon, but by that stage they'd got a complete hold of the game even before that goal.
Yep.
Was it the stat where Tyrone had only fisted 2 points or something at that point?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're making the relevant point about Ulster football. The first goal is Mayday. You get back in your box, the old Mickey Hart thing, you know, you hit them on the break. Tyrone looked to be doing that all the time. Canavan looked dangerous every time the ball went into him. He was amazing yesterday. How that fella, like to watch, I think you put the stat into the group today, but just watching from the naked eye, from a foreign land, watching that guy yesterday, he was amazing. Every time he wanted to take his man on, he was a pleasure to watch. But on the other hand, you know, was he helped as much? Okay, McCurry done a wee bit, but when it came into the second half, there was a total different shift in emphasis from Tyrone in the first half and the second half when it comes attacking wise. And, you know, I don't know where Tyrone go from here. I really don't, because I had real high hopes for him. I thought coming into this game that they would, to be honest with you, I thought they would win by 4 or 5 points. And then it'd be 4 or 5 points at half time and collapse like that. I don't know where the mentality is in the group. They had a great performance against Kerry in the league. I thought that was them. But I don't know, Mal. I just don't know with them at the minute. Hamshi looks out of sorts. Frank Burns, 13 out of the 15 that won the All Ireland in 2021 started. The one that didn't, that really was bizarre, is Sludden, who I like because he can cut through defences. Michael O'Neill started in front of him. I don't know what they're doing. Okay, they went back to Colin Kirkpatrick and Fitzpatrick in the middle of the park. Petey Hart's at 6, where he was at 5 beforehand. I don't know why they're tinkering. Frank Burns, again, as I said to you about that shot, he's not a wing half forward. He's always a wing back, a centre back, somewhere there. It's just frustrating. It seems to me that they're going 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Do I expect them to get to a quarterfinal? Absolutely, I do. But I don't know what their mentality is going to be after yesterday, because they were so good in the first half. They were penetrating at everything that they got. They got runners off them. Their defensive frame, if you want to put it that way, or their defensive, foil was excellent. Excellent. How hard Monaghan had to work for their scores was, well, that's evident for everybody to see. And if you watch the video, it was really difficult for Monaghan to get a score in that opening period. McCarn, Conor McManus were but by players. They were starving the ball, get in there, but I don't know what they then.
They maybe should have been further ahead.
But
they look like all Ireland contenders in the first half.
Absolutely, and I still think they're like.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to say on the 17th of April. I still think they're all Ireland contenders. I just think they're missing maybe 1 or 2 pieces of the jigsaw at the minute. I think that maybe young Matthew McGleenan needs to go into full forward. I think they need to try him. I think they have a very potent full forward line, 2 corner forwards at the minute. I think they need to look at putting Sludden back into centre half forward. Frank Burns, maybe Conor Myler changing up. But I think they have the guts of a really good team there. They're maybe missing 1 or 2 pieces of the jigsaw. It was just, I suppose, Mal, what I'm trying to say is their character in the second half was really, really bizarre. It's not like the hungry Tyrone teams that we've seen in 05, 07, 08, 2010, whatever else. They were just, I don't know, they weren't really hungry in the second half. And Monaghan were able to breeze through. I put this into the group earlier on. Like once or twice in the 61st minute, you just seen guys like Conor McCarthy, O'Hanlon breezing by guys. So I don't know where they go in terms of that. I don't know if their fitness is up to scratch, but their hunger left a wee bit to be desired yesterday, in my opinion.
Yeah, interesting take, Kev. Interesting take. And I suppose, what a remarkable game of football. And I suppose we can move on to Saturday's action in the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarter-final. It was Fermanagh 2-8, Derry 3-17 in Brewster Park. I suppose, Mal, probably not a whole pile to learn from this game. A few talk about going into it with the fitness of Sean Quigley. Obviously, apparent hamstring injury here was going to be a huge loss for Fermanagh, but it probably didn't, on the grand scheme of things, matter a whole shot. Derry, mean business. Derry were hungry, and by God, Rory Gallagher, it meant a lot to him.
I think if the game had been tight, Quigley would have definitely been useful to them. And the word around Brewster Park was that it was an injury. He picked up an injury playing for Osleigh, and it was nothing to do with the podcast, or not that it would be anyway. To be honest, I don't think he should have come into it. I don't even know why people started talking about that, to be honest. But I expected it to be tighter. But when Derry got a point after 43 seconds and were 4-0 up in, say, 10 minutes, I think it was always going to be a one-way traffic at that point. Shane McGuigan's goal just put the hammer blow, and Paul Cassidy put them 10 points up, and there was no way back for Fermanagh. And the only concern would be that when you take out Conor Glass, how open Derry are. I think that's the biggest compliment you can pay him. I've been preaching it to everybody that's his biggest attribute. People are saying, why does he not catch kickouts? You're thinking people don't kickouts aren't kicked long anymore, lads. His biggest attribute is that whole defensive mindset and his unbelievable fitness level to get back, his presence, and his ability to tackle. So that's a concern, that he's gone, but that'll be for another day. But Derry were just that wee bit more ruthless. They played well against the Dubs and couldn't get the scores to go in, build up a decent lead. I think that's why Rory Gallagher was so pumped up, to be honest. Against Galway, they couldn't put Galway away. Every media interview he did, he spoke about, and even when I interviewed Brendan Rodgers after the game, he said the same thing. We're not rubber stamping our dominance enough, and you're coming out in the second half and our team's still in the game. So, and the fact that the biggest disappointment that Rory Gallagher had, was that they didn't score more goals. The fact that they realised that if they're going to be in this shake-up for an All-Ireland, which they invariably want to be, you have to take every single chance you get. Especially the way Derry play is they don't create, probably as many chances as other teams do. They're still scoring highly enough, but they need to take every single chance. And any time they've struggled, it's been in that 10 minutes before half time, they haven't put a team away, and I think that's what they went for on Saturday night. And I thought that Gareth McKinless going forward to centre half forward seemed to tie up Fermanagh. Then Josh Gargo-Ellis seemed to follow him everywhere. I'm not sure if that was the tactic intentionally. But watching the game, he followed McKinless everywhere. McKinless wasn't in the game, but there was a massive space.
Sorry, Mal, to cut across you. Is this going to be a beautiful tactic by Rory Gallagher? Is that what he's going to do?
McKinless?
Yeah.
I did ask him that after the game, and he sort of said, well, we do have plenty of defenders. We thought we'd push Gareth up. He said something like, I don't know if we'll do it every week or something, but it definitely worked. They probably looked at Fermanagh, and they looked at Fermanagh's attack and thought, well, there's Josh Largo-Ellis, a defender by trade. Aidan Breen, who scored 110 for them this year, very good player, but a defender by trade, and thought to themselves, we're going to push Gareth up here. And they're going to respect Gareth McKinless enough to follow him everywhere. You're not going to let somebody like Gareth McKinless be free. And I think it's, just from looking in the stand, and I don't know, I'm not in team talks, obviously they know the crack, but it looked as if they were trying to open up that space, and it did work. Kieran Donnelly in his interviews was chatting about that they thought Derry's stats were further out the pitch. So instead of playing a sweeper, they tried to be more aggressive, and it didn't work. But, if Derry don't go 4-0 up, it's a good tactic. It's always easy talking about it afterwards, but Derry were very clinical.
No.
As Brendan Rodgers says in the interview, he says the two things they took out of the Dublin game was that when they were on top, they didn't keep hammering on the gas. And whenever Dublin got their few goal chances later on, they simply did not engage enough. They didn't, for want of a better term, Rodgers didn't say this, but I think it's what he's getting at. They didn't get in among the Dubs. They didn't hit them hard enough, and there was a space. So I think that's the two things they took out of that game. And if you go back to the Galway game last year, which is the one where Derry flopped them,
where
they're 4 or 5-0 up, and on top, they didn't stretch it. So that's the worry. If Derry are going to win the big prize, they're going to have to put a team's lights out by half time, because they always seem to let teams into it. So maybe that's what we're trying to do.
And I think there's a lot to take away from what you said, man. That's a very good analysis on Derry in terms of, it was a period, obviously Derry had 11 different scores, which is great to see. And I think this game was always one of them ones where there was inevitability about it. But it's all about what we look at Derry about. No disrespect to Fermanagh. Fermanagh have had a great season. I think they've achieved above what they need to achieve. Obviously, without Quigley, that was always going to be a difficult, assignment. What was happening, but I think Mal makes a number of good points about Derry at the minute, and this is the problem I have with Derry. You made a point, Malder, about it's about getting ahead and then sitting back in that box, and that's what they did against Galway last year, and that's what they failed upon. Now, do I think Derry are a better team this year? Absolutely, I do. They've got more scores, they've got more options off the bench. I think Rory's looked at that. You young Downey coming through. You've Lachlan Murray, you've said before, coming off the bench. You know, Paul Cassidy is. I think Paul Cassidy's got better this year, which is great to see. For me, they've had great league games. That Dublin game was a great tester for them in terms of an early season game. You talk about friendlies or whatever else. That was a brilliant game for them to test where they are. Mal's going to fall out with me here. I still don't get Conor Glass at the moment. I still don't. This is a guy that I want bullying games. This is a Dara O'Shea. This is a Sean Kavanagh. This is a Anthony Tohill. He really is. Now, maybe he's fitting in the system. You can tell me more about that, Mal, if you want to. But this guy's so much ability. He's such a good player. He's a Brian Fenton of the modern era. He's as good as Brian Fenton. And we've seen that. You know, Brenton Rodgers is a very different player than him. Brenton's very much more up front, one-on-one, can get forward, can get back. Conor Glass is a guy that can bully games on his own. And I'm just not seeing enough of him at the minute, unfortunately. Look, it's a box tick for Derry. They got a wee additional extra yesterday afternoon, didn't it? Because now they're playing Monaghan. Monaghan are on a great run. They've beat Dublin, Kerry, they've beat Mayo, they've beat Galway in recent times, they've beat Donegal, they've now beat Tyrone. Do I think they can beat Derry at the minute? No, I don't think many teams can beat Derry in terms of their system. I just think Derry need a lot more out of Glass. I think they need one or two more players up front to be contributing to the scoreboard. I love the trajectory Derry are on. I really do. Look, when you look at that game, Fermanagh got 2 goals from their fullback. When's the last time that happened in the Ulster Championship? Well, sorry, he lined out at fullback. McGuigan was class. Cassidy adding to the scoreboard all the time. You know, Niall Toner again, Brendan Rodgers. Derry's system's brilliant. It's very, very hard to beat. There's very few teams that are going to beat this. Maybe 2 or 3 teams on a day will beat it. But Mal, it's all about that point that you made, and that's why I love what you said. If they're ahead at halftime, how do they then kick on? Because if Derry are ahead at halftime, there's not many teams beating them. I'm going to be honest with you. They have a brilliant defensive setup. And if Derry had been in the shoes of Tyrone yesterday, and sorry, Tyrone fans, if you want to get at me, Tyrone yesterday were all at sea at the second half defensively wise. They really were all at sea. Derry have a great framework. Guys know where they are. They know the system. They know where they're playing. And that's what I love about Derry. They have a really good system. And they maybe haven't got the players that maybe Dublin, or no disrespect to Derry, I don't think the players that Galway have or Kerry have or Dublin have, or maybe even Tyrone, but they know where they know what their job is, and they're so good at doing it.
The 2 games that Derry have lost in Croke Park, I'll maybe pick your brain on this one. I think it's maybe an issue that people need to talk about, the Croke Park factor. But in both those games, I remember watching Derry and Galway up on the top deck of the Cusack that day, or the Hogan that day, and thinking to myself, Derry's going to win this. Maybe I'm too optimistic or whatever, or call me biased, whatever. But I was sitting during that Galway game thinking, Rodgers kicks a couple of outrageous points, and you're thinking, Derry's going to be an All-Ireland final this year, lads. But then all of a sudden, they didn't get the other 2 or 3 points that they might have been, they should have got. All of a sudden, you're in a battle.
And this is the point.
At halftime in the Dublin game and the league final, you're thinking to yourself, that's probably as well as Derry have played against a top quality team. Now, they did live dangerously in the fact that John Small missed his goal chance and all that type of thing, but by and large, they were grand. But then, you know, you go back to the point that Brendan Rodgers made and that Rory Gallagher's made, where instead of, there's no point in playing well unless you're 1-8 to 4 points up.
And that's back to my point to you earlier on. That's back to my point to you earlier on in the year, and I said this to you, and I think you agreed with me. I love Derry. I love their framework. I love what they have in terms of their kick out now. Trying to look at their goalkeeper, but even their back setup, they're very, very difficult to play against. They've got a lot of good players in the middle of the park and a couple of expressive players going forward. A couple. Their big problem is if they could clone Paddy and Owen Bradley, it's that scoreline. Them two or three players to add to the scoreboard, as you just said, sitting on the top of the Cusack stand, as a Derry enthusiast that you are last year at the All Ireland semi final. If they had one more player that could kick scores and take that weight off, they're a serious, serious operating team. When we look at Galway, we look at Tierney, we look at Finnerty, we look at Walsh, we look at Comer, right? Before we even look at, the Paul Conroy scoring from the middle of the park. When we look at Kerry, we look at the 6 forward scoring. When we look at Dublin, we look at how many scoring options they have. When we look at Derry, and I'm in the opposition manager's trench, I'm Porrick Joyce last year in the semi-final, I'm thinking to myself, if I can sort of hold Cassidy a bit to a point and stop McGuigan and maybe Toner when he comes off the bench or Lachlan Murray, I'm okay. Benny Hearn was kicking good scores last year, but he's a wee bit less off. So you always look at the other, no matter if it's junior football or not, you're always looking at the other teams. You're always looking to fire stop who's their best players. And that's my big problem with Derry at the minute. They're too over-reliant on one or two players. And that's why I opened my conversation on Derry tonight with they had 11 different scores yesterday. Now, yes, it's only the first round of the championship against, but that option to attack, getting more people on the scoreboard, that willingness to get forward, that's what I want to see from Derry this year. I really want them to unearth one or two big more talents. Maybe young Downey can produce in there. I'm not too sure. Definitely Lachlan Murray maybe is worth a start. But when you get inside Croke Park, as you said, Mal, it's a different story. And have they the same firepower as Galway, as Dublin, as Kerry? Right now I'm saying no. Have they a brilliant defensive framework? Absolutely. So maybe there's something
Paul
to worry together.
Paul Cassidy's chipping in the scores. I think just to finish on Derry here, go back to that league final. When you think about Conor McCluskey and Ethan Doherty and Brenton Rodgers, 3 of Derry's strongest runners in terms of actually just pace and going at you, as you spoke about. Brenton Rodgers was tracked every inch by James McCarthy. To the fact that James McCarthy didn't really care where he touched the ball or not, but he was basically with Rodgers every step of the way. So that was one man that wasn't having an impact the way he usually does. Conor McCluskey was trying to babysit Conor O'Callaghan, so he wasn't able to attack. Ethan Doherty wasn't able to attack because he's that wee bit further back. And when those 3 players were tied up, you worry that way.
Absolutely.
That's a concern.
And that's where I remember speaking to an Ulster manager, and I'll leave it on this in Derry. I remember speaking to an Ulster manager who very famously got a boot in the arse with Derry in an Ulster semi-final. And he said to me, if I tie up the 2 Bradleys, I'll have no worries. And Derry won that day, and that was against Armagh, if you remember it rightly. And that was all he worried about, was the 2 Bradleys up front. And when you put so much into 1 or 2 players, focus, others will produce. And that's what I'm saying about Kerry, about Galway, about Dublin. They have Mayo, they have multiple options up front, and it's great to see.
How different is it to play in Croke Park, Kevin, from playing anywhere else?
It's challenging, yeah.
St. Galls were there twice. Was it hard going from playing at Casement and all the other provincial venues to going to Croke Park?
Well, man, I'll tell you, St. Galls ones weren't hard because we played in, I think the first one was the second one was a record attendance because of the hurling, which was before us, which was like Portumna versus, it was Joe Canning versus DJ Reid. So it was a huge crowd of 33,000 that day. The hardest one for me was I played for Antrim Minors in an All-Ireland quarter-final against Dublin. And Kerry versus Dublin were playing afters. and the hill was full by the time the match was on. It's an intimidating place. There's no doubts about it. But I've no doubts, like when you look at Chrissy McCaig or Brendy Rogers or these guys who have been through successful clubs, and Derry's had a lot of them, or even if you're a Tyrone guy or whatever else, that's where you want to play at. So that intimidating atmosphere is brilliant. You embrace it. You get it. In fact, I would argue that the reason why St. Gall's lost, and Finian Hanley will definitely disagree with me, is on the Wednesday before the All-Ireland Club final when we played Salt Hill in 2006, we went down to Croke Park for a stretch out on the field or whatever else you want to put it, because most of us hadn't been there ever before. And John Rafferty kept us in the change room for 45 minutes. And we couldn't shoot into either goal that night because they had these lights on the pitch. And 4 days later, we couldn't shoot onto the pitch, or we couldn't shoot onto the nets because we were playing useless. So Croke Park holds its own factors. But I suppose my ultimate point is, Mal, when you look at somebody like Rogers, when you look at somebody like McKay, when you look at somebody like McKinley, or any of these Tyrone guys, or any hurlers, or whatever else you want, when you get inside that place, that's where you want to play. That's where you want to perform. It can be intimidating. As I said, I played during a minor hurling match against the Dubs, and it was tight. It was a very tight place. They were on your back. You know, we were shooting into the hill. I think I threw the ball up at one stage, Mal, there's a video, and I missed the ball, you know. So, but yeah, it's not like playing in Clonus, or it's not like playing in Markovitz Park or Parnell Park, which I played in, or Healy Park on a National League match on a Saturday night when there was 78,000 out. It can be intimidating, but this is the next step for Derry. This is where, okay, Rogers has played there for his club, McKee's played there for his club. My point to you is quite simple. When you get these guys, right, these are tremendous athletes, tremendous footballers, tremendous motivated guys. This is what they have to embrace. When we look back at them Derry teams of the last 15, 20 years, and you've followed them, I played against some of them. When we look back, is Brendan Rodgers a better footballer? Is Chrissy McCaig a better footballer than Lockhart, than Johnny McBride, than Eamon Muldoon? These guys? No. These were tremendous team. That 98, 99 team that went against Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final or whatever else it was. But they didn't perform inside Croke Park. And that's the measure of an individual. Getting inside the National Stadium, playing inside there week after week. And I think that's the next step for this Derry team, Mal, in my opinion.
There we go. I think Mr. McMullen tentatively agrees, so we'll wait and see what the next game brings. We will move on to this weekend's action. I suppose we can touch intensely on, obviously, the Ulster Championship games. I suppose the games this weekend in the Connacht Senior Football Championship semi-final. You have Sligo against New York in Markovitz Park at 3:30. In the Munster Senior Football Championship semi-finals, you have Kerry against Tipperary at Fitzgerald Stadium, 4 p.m, and the game will be live on GA Go. And then you have Limerick against Clare in the TUS Gaelic Grounds at 7 p.m. And then we can touch, obviously, on the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarter-final between Cavan and Armagh in Kingspan Breffney Park, 6:30. And again, be live on GA Go. Mr. McMullen, all looking forward to this one.
Certainly. What about yourself? Are you nervous?
Yeah. Me and Johnny's the abuse has already started. We're really looking forward to it. I think the Cavan lads are doing a bit of training in the pitch. I drove by there earlier on, so all guns blazing, Mal.
If you don't win, John, you'll have to go for you've never had a better chance. This is a sitting duck, man.
I know. I have to grab these opportunities. We're looking forward to it. Quietly optimistic. I think there's a lot of hype and talk about this Armagh team. I don't buy it, but I don't know what you lads think.
They've just been so hard to predict for me, and I probably got excited about them last year because I went to watch them playing Galway. It was a penalty shootout, and it was chaos, and all those types of things. I maybe get carried away with that, maybe too easy influence. I love drama, but this year they haven't kicked on at all, really. They had non-different league campaign. I know a lot of the games are actually quite close to winning. They weren't beat out the gate every week or whatever, but they haven't really delivered.
No,
Pressure's on them. Pressure's on them.
I think that's a very good.
I would go as far as to say, and I said this last week, that Antrim's goalkeeper Michael Byrne, I thought, kicked very well against them. Only Antrim just kept giving the ball away. If Antrim had to stop giving the ball away, and I know it's a big F, F's a big word, whatever, and had a wee bit more composure, they could have been a lot tighter in that game, a lot tighter. But
oh Jesus, Mal! There's more chance of the British press giving Joe Biden a thumbs up for his Irish visit than that. Like, come on.
Now I try and give every team a bit of respect. Like, but I just thought
Antrim were. In your analysis of Armagh,
they had enough possession. They had enough possession to do something with that game.
And your analysis of Armagh is 100% correct. We don't know. Last year they were brilliant. We all jumped on the gravy boat. It was class to watch, but I don't know. I just don't know where they are right now. I really don't. They didn't play a team. They had let's be honest, they had a practice match against Antrim, because Antrim, there was times in that match, it wasn't a glove laid on anybody, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Turbott's a brilliant footballer, but he'll get attention this weekend. I liked your analysis about Armagh last year and what we all expected, but no, not about the Antrim match. I mean, there wasn't a glove laid on Armagh. Let's be honest.
There wasn't, but if Antrim used the possession better, or another team gets the same amount of possession against Armagh, it's going to hurt them.
Absolutely, but Antrim just didn't have the quality. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
So I'll go back to that Cavan Donegal game last year in Clonus. Absolutely brilliant. James Smith up front. Box office stuff, drama.
Yeah.
Back to my magic word again. But, Cavan have to go this weekend and say, lads, let's go for this here. Mm-hmm. Like, you're also champions 2020, like. Mm-hmm. And they need to go for it. And it probably, at the end of the day, Armagh needs silver. You might say
there's far more pressure than on Armagh than us. I can tell you how much.
I think there is. I think there is a round robin stage.
Do they need silver when Francisco Franco is at the helm? That's the big issue. Do they need silver when we are seeing holes appear all over Armagh? I don't know.
They need to win silverware.
Do you still have Francisco's jersey from 03, Kev?
Francisco Franco's at the helm, and I don't know if they need silverware. I don't know, because Mal, if they don't get silverware this year, if they don't penetrate beyond the quarterfinals, he'll still be there. Agreed?
Next year, do you think, Kev? Yeah.
Yeah. That's my view. I don't know what your view is, Mal. He's been relegated. They're brilliant year last year, don't get me wrong, but I don't think silverware is anywhere near them at the minute.
But my point is, they need to win Ulster this year.
I don't think they're going to. That's my point to you.
Yeah,
and if they don't win it, I'm putting the ball back in your court. If they don't win it, should he go?
That's probably the brass tacks of it, isn't it, really, at this stage?
It probably is. That's a big decision to be made at that point. That's where you get into players at that stage. Like, for example, look what Paddy Carr's met with.
Well, the big thing for me about the Cavan Armagh game is Rian going to play?
That's we don't know. We don't know.
So if we hear that next week that Rian isn't playing, and my hearing is that Rian will not play, so where are we going? Are we heading to an impasse?
Well, I actually couldn't believe that Armagh are the only team not to be in a provincial, or the team has been the longest since they've been in a provincial final. I actually forgot about that. 08.
08 against Fermanagh. Yeah.
I sort of actually forgot about that stat. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah. Antrim reached the 2009 final the year after.
It's probably worse than the one where Derry hadn't won an Ulster title in 24 years, but they haven't been in a final. That's scary. That's where I think they really need to win Ulster. And they
And
probably
Mal,
need to forget about
and
the,
Mal, if you look at that,
they need to forget about the group stages. They need to forget about the group stages, and if they end up in the group stages, worry about it then. But they need to be going to Cavan this weekend and saying, lads, we need to get Clonus.
All guns blazing.
We need to get the Clonus. That makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, flip it back to Mal. Do you think they're good enough to get the Clonus? As in terms of even, Clonus and Ulster final day. Even if they win this weekend, do you think they're good enough to beat Down or Donegal?
At the minute, the jury's out.
Armagh should beat Down over Donegal, surely.
I don't know. I really don't know.
You need to become with back-to-back performances.
I don't know. There's something special about Down in the Championship. They've always got an upset in them, even if they beat Donegal and they get a bit of momentum. Even if Donegal beat Down, I don't know. Armagh full back line is a wee bit fragile. Again, we don't know what's happening with Rain. They're over reliant up front in 2 or 3 players. I love Conor Turpin. I think he's a brilliant footballer. Rory Grugan, yes. If they get Rain up there, they have a great access of 3 or 4 players up there. I don't know.
Vernon's a big miss as well.
Sorry, say that again.
Vernon's a big miss as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Andrew Vernon's brilliant player for him. So there's a lot of unknown questions, and that's why I just think, and that's why I had to cut across Mal and say, I think there's a lot stacked against Armagh going into this Cavan game, and Cavan should smell blood. If Cavan come out hungry, like Cavan can do sometimes, and they get a good early start, then that's huge. That's absolutely huge. And that could be catastrophic for Armagh's season. Absolutely. Okay, they'll go into the group stages because of their league position, but I just don't know where this project's going at the minute. I had real bright shoots and real hopes last year. They gave us some of the best days of last summer. They were brilliant, but you just don't know right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be quite confident enough. So the game itself, lads, where's it going to be one loss? I'm obviously just looking at the match programme from the league final last out, and obviously Garode McKernan got team of the week the last time. Just quiet enough game the last year. I think Garode will need to have a huge performance this weekend. And likes of Paddy Lynch and Ryan O'Neill showed very well. Darren McVitie, very good game last week here in the Hall of Brady as well. So from the Cavan end of things, they can definitely look to them in this weekend, Mal.
Kieran the Halla and McVitie have been very, very good. Like McVitie's transformed. He missed a few games. I don't think they risked them because they were already promoted.
The answer from that game, yeah.
But Lynch up front, if they can get him enough service, obviously Oisín Brady is tipped in with scores. Galligan's an exceptionally good keeper in every facet of the game.
Yeah.
And and they found new players. Madden, that boy.
Don't mention Conor Madden in this program. Don't mention Conor Madden on this podcast. There'll be legal issues.
Mal Carney came in was a regular. Like Cavan's defence was pretty steady all the way through the league. But the only worry is that I went to see them playing Antrim that day, and Antrim played them completely. But I don't know, maybe Cavan weren't at the pitch of it that day or whatever. But I would be fearful for Armagh here. I'm not saying they would win or whatever, but I'd be fearful.
John, it's lazy journalism for me to say, or lazy punditry for me to say, but he hasn't played a great deal that we know in the league. But Garode McKernan's such an influential guy right here, because man rightly points out, okay, Paddy Lynch, right? And he's a great player inside. I think James Morgan will hold him steady. I think he will. James Morgan's a phenomenal. I've been up against him. Boy, he's a claw, right? And he will hold him steady. McKernan further out the field where he gets a wee bit. He can influence the game in around the middle of the park because he can catch ball and he brings other people into the game. McVitie running as well from deep is big.
Yeah.
Huge. Madden as well running from deep because he does get back in fairness to him. He's a very workaholic wing half forward.
Yeah.
But McKernan, he's such an influential player, not only for the scores he kicks from frees and from play, bringing other people into the game and what he can give you. And he's a great leader, in fairness to him. I said this to you last year in Division 4 when things weren't going right for Cavan. He stood up against Sligo, for example.
Yeah.
He can catch ball from kickouts. I think he is huge in this game. And who Armagh choose to pick him up will be really interesting. I've no doubts they'll put James Morgan on Paddy Lynch. I've no doubts about that.
I can remember Grode having a huge game in 2016. I think it was him and Shawnee Johnson shared the full forward line in Breffni Park against Armagh in 2016. And in fairness, the pair of boys did run amok. So, of course, we've no Shawnee this weekend, but we've Grode this weekend, and God knows what could happen.
No, they're not going to put him in full forward. If I was Mickey Graham, would be keeping him out around the 40. He can bring other people in the play, as I say.
Okay. He's
a lot better free wise. I don't know if Armagh will obviously go back into their zone, as we call it. So he might get a lot more free roll. He can kick points from distance. Gordon McKiernan's a full package when he wants to be. And Sunday is a game for him to stand up big time. This is when, a developing Cavan team who have just come up from Division 2 are playing a team that's just come down from 1. The team that's just come down from 1 are a wee bit on the rocks. He's the sort of guy that can lead this team through. McVitie, another guy, powerful runs, breaks that defensive shield. And again, it comes back to my point. You can talk about Cavan all day long, but I think the big talking point around this match is, will Rian O'Neill play?
Yeah. I'm surprised there hasn't been any.
It's hugely
media.
It's hugely influential that if he plays or not, because while Rian scores frees off the ground or out of his hands, he's also an excellent player from open play. And that will give the Cavan management team a lot to think about their own zone and how they set up and they play.
Yeah.
So, it works both ways, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt as the week was on and the week developed, there'll be a few stories to break regarding Rian O'Neill. We will wait and see. Final predictions, that's who we thinking, Cavan or Armagh? Mal?
Tough. Very tough. I don't know why. I'm going to go for Armagh.
I'll just mute you there, man.
You're going to shoot me.
Mr. McGarty.
I think we're under a lot of pressure. And maybe just give them a nod.
I've no splinters in my ass, Mal. I'm going straight up for Armagh for the reason that Mal has said. They're under huge pressure. And generally, when McGeeney's teams are under huge pressure, they deliver. So
my concern is they don't have Merlin. Sorry, I haven't done any research because I'm not sure if he's injured this week. But if they don't have him, is he kick-out option less for them? But I'll go for Armagh.
Yep, that's two of us.
Oh, there we go, lads. Cannot wait for that.
No ice creams for us, Mal, down in Cavan this weekend.
It's in Kingspan Breffni Park. Kev, any abuse about being in Cavan?
Cavan Crystal Hotel, went in there one day to buy a pint of freaking Guinness. I went in with a American Express gold card. I came out with nothing.
The Black Horse pub in Cavan Town, best stout I've ever had.
Oh, mighty.
Oh yeah, Mal, great spot.
Good grub too, though. Yeah. Good grub as well.
Yeah, Mal.
Beat Cavan Gales in a Ulster club in 2009. Went in afterwards for a pint of stout and a stew. It was freaking beautiful, man.
In the Black Horse.
No way.
Good man, Kevy. You haven't lost that weight since. Brilliant stuff. Right, lads, we'll crack on in the Connacht Senior Football Championship semi-final. Huge one this weekend. It's Galway against Roscommon in Dr. Hyde Park, 4 p.m. and that game will be live on RT2. And then in the Leinster Senior Football Championship quarterfinals, it's Westmeath against Louth in Park Taunton at 2 p.m. It's Kildare against Wicklow in Networks Cullen Park at 2:30. It's Laois v Dublin in Laois Highmore Park at 3:30. And then Offaly against Meath in Glennis O'Connor Park at 4 p.m. And the last game of the weekend in the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarter-final, it's Down against Donegal in Park Esler. Game will be live at 2 p.m. It'll be on BBC Sport NI. Mr. McGurdy, what are we thinking?
I'm thinking a wee bit of an upset here. I really am. Donegal are in a bit of, turmoil. Lowry is a shrewd individual. Mal probably knows him actually better than me, having talked to him a lot over the last while. He'll have his guys up and motivated. Look, the thing about Down is they're like the French rugby team. One day they'll beat New Zealand. The next day they'll get beat by Tonga. You just never know what you're getting with them, right? They're so schizophrenic. It's unreal. I remember I was writing an article for the Gaelic Life at the time, and Tyrone were the All-Ireland champions coming into Park Esser, and Down beat them that night, if you remember, Mal. I think Ross Carr and DJ came were over them, and after extra time, it was unbelievable. It was actually the atmosphere was incredible. But Down have just this thing where they can get themselves up for the championship. The Down, after the league they've had, was a wee bit underwhelming. I expected more. I said that to you. They've got really exceptional players coming through. Maybe this year was a bit of a learning curve for them. Do they have an upset in them? Absolutely. I'm a wee bit. Look, Donegal's been look, there's no other way to put it. John, I'm sorry to say this in your show. It's been a shit show. Absolute shit show. And I really do think that Down can turn them over. There's a lot that depends on what Down do defensively, because that's been their Achilles heel for 15, 20 years now. What Down are given for a Paul Higgins or a Conor Deegan in the full back line, a good tight marking defender has been their issue for a long time now. But I do think Down have the capabilities of turning them over, especially with the home crowd. Donegal coming down on the trajectory that they're on in the psychological position that they're on. So, do you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Down.
Yeah, I think all signs are pointing that direction. Mal, yourself?
Donegal probably a more settled team than Down. I know they got relegated, and it's been well documented about the academy and Paddy Carr being ousted and all those things. But they had a pretty settled team in the league. And the only time I saw them in the flesh was the day that they drew with Galway, and they were exceptional. Only they couldn't score, which is the problem. And Oisin Gallen is now injured since that. They've brought in Owen McGettigan into the panel. I think he scored 6 points in a league game a couple of weeks ago, but he's got, no match practice really for the county. I think they played Antrim in a challenge game over the weekend. Donegal, I'm not sure how it went. There was chat of that.
I would have done them well. I would have been really competitive, that one.
They're a pretty settled team. They're a pretty settled team, Donegal. And they played at a higher level than Down did in the league. So that's the thing about it. Also, when the players voted to get rid of the manager, they're under pressure to deliver. For me, if you ousted your manager and you're saying things aren't rosy, so they have to deliver. So from a Donegal point of view, you'd like to think there's a kick in those players. But I went to watch Down playing Derry in the McKenna Cup, and Down came with an unbelievable hunger that day. And it was a Conor Laverty, it just was him spat out, what he brings to the game. So they're going to be missing Owen Murdoch and Ryan McGill. They're under 20 players because of the ruling with the under 20s. And I'm going for Down. I don't think it would be that big of a shock. But it would be. I suppose it would be a shock when you talk about Division 3 versus Division 1. But my gut says Down.
Yeah. Nicely put, gents. Nicely put. Obviously, looking forward to all the games this weekend. Probably didn't have time to go through them all, but a rip-roaring weekend of action to look forward to, and we cannot wait for it. Supposed to wrap up. Mr. McGurdy, your player to watch this weekend and bet of the weekend.
For me, there's only one player to watch this weekend, and that's the game we've just been talking about. Is the Donegal Down game, and there's a kid I've known since he was under 12 at Burn. He's a kid called Liam Kerr. He's the speediest kid I've ever seen on a football field. He's been part of that Burn team. I think they've won up. Mal will keep you right here. They've won Ulster minor and under 21s, and what a player he is. And if he plays for Down this weekend, look, what I love about him is Liam Kerr looks you in the face as a defender when he's playing wing forward or corner forward, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to go down your throat. What are you going to do about it?" And he's he puts it to you as a defender in defence. He's a really good player. Sometimes he comes in and out of games. I would like to see him being more consistent. But this weekend, look, guys, watch out for this kid, Liam Kerr. So speedy. Bet of the weekend, I'm going to go for Oisin against Kildare.
Ho-ho.
Oh, Danny would love a win there, Mr. McConville. He would love a win there. And by the way, Mr. McConville was looking like James Bond on BBC duty over the weekend. Mr. McMullen, last word with you. Leave the last word with the wise man.
Bet of the weekend. Don't really know. So, Life to beat Westmeath.
Yeah, I think that's yeah.
And player to watch, Pat Havern.
Yeah. Okay.
They lost Barry Hagan to injury, and he scored very heavy for them. I like the look of him the day that Derry played them, and I'm looking forward to see how he delivers. Because let's face it, it would be a shock of sorts. They're at home, they have a new manager, Down are crying out for a team to follow, and if they're looking for a team to follow, you need a good inside man. So I'm looking forward to see how Pat Havern plays.
John, can we just finish on this? It's very it's not very often we get to say this, but the GA this week, and I'm very critical of it, and has this week made the House of Representatives in America that a motion is now to be discussed on the floor tomorrow of an impeachment of the US president for supporting Mayo in the All Ireland campaign against New York. So a couple of New York, I'm led to believe that there'll be something discussed tomorrow in the US House of Representatives about the GA. So how far we have come with President Biden's visit. So up New York this weekend, even though their own president isn't supporting them.
Yeah. Full forward line, Snoop Dogg and who else, Kevin? Who did we say last year?
Snoop Dogg, P. Diddy, and Jay-Z.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. They're getting their expenses anyway. I think that's what they are. Expenses and a lot of points after each game. The very best luck to all teams this weekend, but especially on Cawan and New York. Lads, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, the podcast brought to you by YourGrits.com. Use the code JMC podcast to get 15% off on the website. Mr. Woolen, thank you very much. James Bond, thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. Salam.